Okay, hello everyone. My name is Parham, and this is the We Got You podcast. Today, we are joined with a few other guests, and we're going to be talking about COVID-19. So, if you guys want to introduce yourself for the people that don't know who you guys are.
So, my name's Larissa. I've been on one of the previous podcasts, actually. I'm the president of the We Got You organization.
I'm Kira, and I'm the VP of Technology.
Oh, you're on mute, Nicholas.
Hi, I'm Nicholas, and I'm the VP of Finance.
Yeah, so since we're going to be talking about COVID-19, I know there's a lot of bad stuff that we can get into, but first let's talk about some positive things because I know, as terrible as this is, I actually talked to one of my friends about it, my neighbor, and he said that this was like one of the best things that could have happened to him because like gives you time to like self-reflect as well as kind of get everything in order, see what you want to do. So I was wondering if you guys have any experience like that.
Yes, I actually agree. Um, the like being in quarantine kind of forced you to be a lot more separated from everyone else, right? Because we were physically in quarantine, and mentally that allowed me to more focus on myself because I I wasn't hanging out with friends, of course. Like all I had was like my family and myself at the time. So that it allowed me, yes, for like you said, a lot of self reflection and a lot of goal setting, even especially because I started thinking about universities and where I wanted to go. I took that as like a huge opportunity to start more thinking of that and then setting goals for the future for myself.
Yeah, like Larissa said, you really have more time to focus on yourself. And for me, it really got me into doing more hobby related things. Like I started reading again because I had way more time on my hands. So it was also like good and bad as all of that happened. And yeah.
hmm in my own personal case, I definitely found myself with a lot more free time. So then I invested more of my time into reading or like personal improvement because during like at least for a large portion of my time spent like in lockdown, I would go outside and bike like but just by myself because well it's not like I can do it with anyone else, and that'd be like my exercise every day. So I'd like take those sorts of opportunities as like the time presented itself.
Yeah, I actually did both of those as well. It was weird because there was so much time that was outlined in front of us, and I was like, "What do I do? Like, what do I do with all the time that I have?" Because
Yeah.
I'm so not used to having time to like, in school you were busy and everything, and I got to try so many different things. And although it, was not great because pandemic, but it did allow for a lot of improvement. I feel like for a lot of people, which is really good.
hmm Yeah, and since you couldn't really hang out with friends, you were kind of forced to find other things that you were interested in that you liked doing. Like for me, I was just experimenting a lot with different things like Photoshop, like making music, whatever it was, So those are the places that I found comfort in, and I think that's my biggest takeaway from all of this.
That's really
But
cool.
mhm. So now that we got that out of the way, we can get into all the stressful stuff that I know you guys really want to hear about. So, what do you guys think was the most stressful part about all of this? Was it the online schools? Was it the not being able to see people?
There was a couple of things. For me, I found a lot of it in the media. So of course it's very prevalent at the moment within the media because it's prevalent in our daily lives. But always always paying attention, watching the news and looking at social media and all these just different media sources fills you with a lot of things in your head. And I noticed that I was paying too much attention to everything around me, that I wasn't focusing on me. Meanwhile, there's conspiracy theories at the moment and people who believe the government and who don't. And it's just, no matter what, you still have to be careful, right? If you go out, you still have to wear a mask. You're supposed to stay home. So I found that to ease my stress a lot was just staying away from the media and just making sure that I'm safe like within myself, and that those around me are safe as well.
Yeah, and there's been a lot of influencers who haven't really been respecting the masks, like that you see online, that are really showing bad examples of what to be doing, and like giving off a bad impression of how you're supposed to be acting in a pandemic. And it's like really disappointing to see some of the people that are not respecting the, like, I forget the word,
Like
but
the
like,
regulations and the
yeah, the
guidelines.
Yeah.
regulations, yeah. And it's really scary to see some of these large groups of influencers just hanging out, acting like nothing ever happened, even though they got tested, but they're not wearing masks, and
Yeah,
it's
in terms of
scary.
yeah, in terms of media representation, like that's that's really important that we set good examples.
I think the media is something that, I've tried really hard to stay away from because it really does just always put out the negative, because like positive media doesn't get a lot of coverage because that's just not what people are interested in. So you keep seeing like these waves of negative, there's 4,000 cases, this person's doing this, whatever's going on, this politician's doing this. And it really, especially at a time like this, that is the last thing I would want to be around personally.
Yeah.
Indeed, that is definitely one of the biggest things that like has been a like huge factor, like causing a lot of people to be anxious about the pandemic when the media is just kind of like just feeding everyone all this information of like the terrible things that are happening. Oh, look, we have 4,000 new cases every day. It can definitely be disconcerting, but I personally have found myself almost on the opposite end of the spectrum actually, because I feel like I've been rather disconnected from just, I guess, both like public situations and like even, of course, like talking less with friends because I simply can't interact with them as much. But because of that, I find myself like, yeah, disconnected, and I'm like starting to like sort of distance myself from like the everyday happenings of the world. And to some degree, that's good because it's sort of unhealthy to be like on top of every single thing that's going on right now. I mean, you like there are definitely boundaries that need to be drawn, but still, you have to kind of strike at the right balance of like knowing like important things, but also not like overwhelming yourself with it.
Of course. Yeah, it's important to be aware, but you can't control the things that are happening around you. You can only control your reaction to it, which is really important. I've been trying to keep that in mind because, yeah, at first I was, even like when I was working, of course, now I'm not because of the lockdown. But when I was working, I feeling very, very anxious about it because the cases were going up. Meanwhile, there was nothing I could do about it. So I made sure that I focused on like just being safe within myself and staying positive and not allowing it to scare me because essentially it's the life we're living right now and there's nothing you can do about it. But I also did notice, Nicholas, what you were saying, feeling like a little bit disconnected from people. Like I didn't want to see people anymore, which was obviously because we're in a pandemic, but that's not me at all. I'm more like extroverted and I loved hanging out with my friends, and that extreme cutoff, it was difficult for me at first until I went to go like, okay, but you can focus on yourself now. And I did start doing that, but at first it was weird because everyone that I would see all the time was not there anymore and it was all just virtual, and just not actually seeing people and like wanting to see people is just weird for me because that's not really who I am. So I noticed that, but of course I had to kind of remind myself like, hey, we're in a pandemic. Like that's okay. You'll change. Like things will, once things eventually go back to normal, and of course they will, um it, it'll change. It'll become easier to be around people again, of course, if there's not a virus going going around.
hmm Yeah, it was definitely really strange to be someone that's very extroverted and then suddenly become like, oh, I don't talk to
Yeah,
people anymore.
I
And
know.
I think it it was interesting because it kind of made you look at who your real close friends are, because there was people that you hang out with every day, but then suddenly they're just not there anymore, and you're really left with a few people that you really like trust, that you really like hanging out with. So I think that was very interesting aspect of it.
Yeah,
So
it's. I think I had a like sort of similar situation where I think now, because of the pandemic, I sort of have like changed, like had a reshuffling of who I consider like closer friends, just based on around the circumstance of how close I can be with them or how frequently I can interact with them, because now all of my interactions are basically happening online. Different people are like more available in these sort of situations, and because of that, like I'm talking to this group of people more, and I've like slightly uh, become like less frequently talking with others, and I just find that kind of interesting how that can change, just like, well, okay, I guess it is a really big factor, but still, like, it's very interesting to see how that changes.
Mhm.
yeah, for sure, I agree. It's really strange, man. I don't know. Like, but is there any other like stressful things that you guys? What about how are you guys doing with online classes? Because I know some people really like them, some people don't really like them. So what's your guys' opinion on it?
For personally, I didn't really like them at all, and still I preferred um in class school, just because I missed like class discussion and being able to see people. It was kind of like seeing my friends was kind of my motivation to go to school, because although it was school and I had to do work, I still got to see my friends. So having it online and not being able to see faces was kind of took it didn't make me as motivated to get my stuff done. Um, but then again, I also like that I'm able to take things at more at my own pace. So I'm able to kind of spread out what I want to do and when I want to do it, instead of having a teacher like watching you being like, oh, like you have to do this in this order kind of thing. There's a lot more independence, which is also good for when you're looking at universities and stuff. But yeah, that was probably, I don't know, it was both, right? Like there was some positives to it and there were also some negatives. How about you guys?
I mean, I think that I definitely found online school, and I still find this to be true. It's a much more impersonal experience, simply because, well, you're not interacting face to face, and that's the point of it. You don't want to be interacting face to face in a pandemic situation, but still, because of that, now when I'm in classes, like everyone has their cameras turned off, and like we're just our teachers looking at a screen, like a black screen full of digital avatars, and it's just it is really not the same thing as being in the class. And also another thing that has become of that because of it is that I feel more disconnected from like doing work and assignments, and it's just it is a lot harder to concentrate on doing tasks, and I find myself like having to sort of invest more brain power into just doing what I would be normally doing in a normal situation.
For me, I actually really enjoy online classes, mostly because you writing in the chat is like way easier than raising your hand and like asking a question, at least for me. And you get a way more personalized answer, I think. Um, and you can also like ask her to have like a one-on-one like afterwards, and it could be even during class, and you don't have a bunch of faces staring at you, if that makes sense. And honestly, because it is more personal, like when one on one and you have to motivate yourself, I feel like I've gotten way more motivated to do school for somehow, because I actually want to get my assignments done like on time and stuff. So I found myself like scheduling myself more and pacing myself more so that I'll actually get all the assignments done on time. So yeah, I really like online school.
That's interesting. Yeah, I actually haven't heard that perspective like from a lot of people. I would agree that I do like online school, but probably for the wrong reasons. Like, oh, I get to sleep in, I get to, tests are easier. I don't really need to pay attention in class, and but that's not necessarily a good thing for my marks aren't bad. But it's really hard to find motivation
Yeah.
in that.
That has been a huge thing in like online learning. Yeah, I definitely agree with that. Motivation is so much more harder to find in an online setting.
It's
Yeah,
like,
because there's not that physical force, right? Like actually pushing you with the teacher actually there. You have to be able to find it within yourself. Like you have to be able to do the work because you want to do the work, which can be tough as time at times because usually there's like the teacher that's pushing you and but that's reality. Like within life, you're not always going to have that physical force. So I think it has like taught us a lot about independent work
mhm.
and like proper work ethic.
Yeah, and I think it's really weird to also something like school has a certain like learning environment, right? If you're going to school, you're going there to learn. It's really weird to do all of your learning in the same place that you like sleep, that you do everything else because it's just not that kind of environment. So
Mm-hmm.
I found it really difficult to like kind of wake up in bed and like go to my desk and set up my computer and all of that stuff. So especially last year, I would do like most of my classes from bed, which was not very good for me. Yeah, and I really,
I
oh, sorry.
sorry. Can you just finish your point?
Yeah, I realized like, oh, I have to actually find a space where I can call a learning environment and then do all of my schoolwork there and kind of separate it.
Mhm. I think having different physical environments to like do different tasks in, I found that to be a huge factor in like my personal performance because when I go to school, I'm subconsciously like psyching myself up to uh, like do better in academic situations because okay, I'm going to school, I have to get ready for my classes, I'm going to be prepared to uh, like listen to the teacher and everything, and that just really helps bring you into the situation, like get your mind into focus. And it doesn't really, I don't find that it works the same way when you get up and you walk 2 meters to your desk in your bedroom to go to school. So
Yeah.
Yeah, I would start and I would get up and spend the whole day like in my pajamas and I do my work in my like yeah, in my bed, right? With my computer there. And then I started realizing that that wasn't motivating me at all. And I had to learn like through experimentation kind of that like Larissa, when you stay in your PJs all day and stay in your bed, you don't want to do work and you don't want to like literally get up and do anything. I felt so lazy. So for me, I still like even though I'm at home, I get up, I get ready, and I actually moved to a different room, which I like. I'm not always in my room. I'm in the office at the moment. So I found that that helped too because just it's like a change of environment and you're not always in your room all day and with your bed right there that you want to go lie down on kind of thing. So personally, that's one thing that helped me.
Yeah, and it doesn't help that, well, for me at least, in my experience, the online tests are a lot easier than the
Mhm.
in-class tests. So half the time I'm kind of like, I don't even really need to pay attention in class. As long as I fill in the notes like a few days before the test, I'll be completely okay.
Mhm.
No, I don't know if that's the same with you guys.
Yeah, well, for us, we haven't had as many tests. Most of them are assignments. So the assignments are easier, I noticed, than within school. I think it's also because we kind of have, in some ways, we have more time to work on it and we have like more time to ask questions, somewhat. I feel that a little bit. So the tests that we have had a couple, and yeah, they're usually open book. So that's it's good because it'll result in higher grades, but it's also kind of not really like real life situations. How about you? How about Kira? Do you have anything to add?
No, not really.
Yeah. For I would agree with that. It's interesting because I really I'm curious to how I'm gonna adapt after COVID is gone and then we have to go back to everything normal. Like, is it gonna be the same kind of learning curve that it was getting adjusted to COVID? Do I really want to go through that in university? It's just it's a scary time. I don't know.
Mhm.
You know, I've been basically since the beginning of online learning, I've sort of been begging to go back to school because the more I do online learning, the more I'm like, okay, I really cannot take this. But now you've implanted the thought into my head of, oh, will I have to go through the same experience when going back to school? Will I have to relearn how to have like every single day spent in class with a giant group of people? And it's wow, I just haven't thought about that. So.
I feel like I'm gonna be extremely awkward. Like that's the first thing that comes to mind. It's like, how am I gonna go to this place with like 300, 400 kids, sit in a classroom with like 30 people and just learn? Like that's so weird to me now.
Mhm.
Where yeah, at home I could just turn off my camera and I don't really have to worry about anyone else.
Yeah. At first, when we were doing like half and half and we had to go to school with our masks on, I noticed at first it was like no discussion within the class. And it kind of dragged on, but it was mostly like the first month, but it didn't always get better. It was kind of like dependent on the day. But it was weird because you couldn't see people's like mouths moving, and even it wasn't too muffled, but it was kind of muffled. It was just such a weird, and we were so far from people. Like it felt weird participating in conversation because I couldn't see them speaking. So with that, like I feel like it made people like less social kind of.
Mm.
I definitely think so. I just remember before the pandemic, before the lockdown, I would be like hard pressed to find a day at school where like at least one of my teachers like wouldn't try to quiet down the class because they were talking too much and the teacher needed to like get their lesson through. But now after during this like online learning phase, both actually. While learning online or in our like the modified face-to-face social distancing sort of situation, like that doesn't happen anymore. You don't get like side conversations between students, and it's like on one hand it's sort of a teacher's bliss because well you don't have to quiet down students, but no discussion happening is kind of like disconcerting in a sort of educational environment. So that's another thing that I've like taken away from our new experience.
I
Mhm.
just don't even understand where like what was I talking to? Like
I
about
know.
people that I barely talked to. Like it was just so strange to me that that even existed before.
Mhm. Yeah, because there's more going on, but like even looking at people, like how many times have I looked at someone and like smiled at them behind my mask, and then I had to like, where's you wearing a mask, or like mouth someone to like whispered kind of, but then I realized they couldn't they couldn't
Yeah.
see me and they couldn't hear.
And
And I
it
had to
doesn't
like mentally.
yeah. Yeah, it doesn't help that the desks are also 2 feet away, so I have to like scream at them if I want to get their attention.
Yeah.
So, and like class sizes are smaller, so you don't even have people that you're friends with in most of your classes. It's just really weird. Like, I remember the first day I went back to school, I was like, this is the most unreal experience I have ever had. Like, it just seems really, I don't even know what the word, like dystopian, like you have all these people with masks
Yeah.
on, the teachers have these like face shields on, and I just have no idea what's going on. So yeah, that's been very strange.
I've never heard actually someone call it dystopian, and that's true. That's an interesting like way of looking at it. It kind of is like that.
Mm.
I would like say it's almost inhuman, like in the sense that we're not sort of building normal connections. We're not looking at each other using like facial expressions or anything. We're kind of cutting ourselves off from everyone, and that has been the effects that it's had.
Mhm.
Mhm. Yeah, it's kind of like everything we've built until now is kind of gone, and you kind of have to remodel the way you look at everything. Like it was just a complete like cutoff in your life, and it was just like, this is how you have to live now. This is what you have to do. Like you can't do this anymore. You can't do that. And of course, it's all necessary, but it was just weird for a lot of people, right?
Mhm. I
Yeah.
remember. Oh, sorry.
Also, like, I was thinking about what are like the positives of this, and honestly, what I'm most like thankful of is that people are actually cleaning like properly now. Because like before, I never really noticed, but they only cleaned like once a day, and now they're cleaning like every hour or whatever. And I'm like, wow, they should really just keep doing this, even though it's like harder. I know it's probably very hard, but honestly, I'm like happier that it's more cleaned because I find myself like every year getting sick around the same time because I'm going to school and catching a cold or whatever. And because of that, and we aren't even going to school, but once we do get back into it, like half and half days, I don't think I'll get a cold because they're cleaning, right? So that's one of the positives, definitely.
Yeah, I do definitely think that hygiene is a huge positive. Like when we come out of this pandemic, uh, when we go back to school, people will definitely be more aware of like cleanliness. And I think one key thing that I've noticed in my own school is that in each of our washrooms, we've installed paper towel dispensers, and instead of having those really slow warm hand dryers, and it's a life changer because now you can that's so much more hygienic, and people actually use them because they don't take 50 seconds for you to dry your hands. And like, wow, I I think that's a wonderful change that has happened just in general. But so I guess that is a definite positive uh, coming out of a pandemic. Yeah.
I think super interesting is since Kira brought it up, I don't remember the last time I had the cold. Like
Mhm.
it's been a year since I've been sick,
Yeah,
Yeah.
which is so strange to me.
I know. And even looking back, like, on Snapchat, the like a year ago today, and I'm around so many people. And or even my friend, I know she posted something and she was at like a meet and greet for like a celebrity, and there were so many people all in one. And like looking at it was like it was scary. I was like, people used to get that close to each other. Or even in a movie, like the first thing I'll think of, this is especially at the beginning. I was like, why aren't they social distancing? And it was like, Larissa, this was a movie that was like filmed 10 years ago. But it's so weird how a mentality has changed that you don't like, you're just not close to people anymore. And like, it's weird. It's like kind of scary and like wrong to be so close to people. And like we're living in a history book. That's another thing. This is going to be such a huge part in history, the time that we went through a pandemic and we lived through it. Like imagine telling our kids, like, yeah, you better go to school, because when we were your age, like we had to stay home. We had no social interaction. We had like, how your parents kind of
Mm.
exaggerate everything. Yeah, that's gonna be me.
It is definitely going to be a huge defining thing about like anyone who has like lived through this period. We're gonna like everyone will have the same shared memory of, okay, what did I do during the time when I couldn't interact with others?
Yeah.
And its effects will like manifest in like decades to come as like, yeah, this is a huge like societal shift. And it's going to be very interesting to see how that affects like the world.
Yeah.
Definitely the people who like graduated during the pandemic as well, because they didn't get prom. They got like a very weird graduation, and I think that they're gonna have like a lot of stories about like what they were doing to like I guess replace those sort of things during the pandemic. And I kind of feel like really bad for them because they didn't get the things that they should have gotten, and it's like really saddening to see like people post about it on social media as well, and they're like writing songs about it about how sad they are that they didn't get to go to prom. And like, yeah, that's what I've noticed as well from the past 2 years of graduates. Like this is the second year.
Yeah, it's gonna be
Yeah.
really weird to not have a prom.
I know, because
Mm.
you're in grade 12, right,
Yeah,
Brian?
it's a. I'm lucky because I really didn't like in the beginning. I didn't really even care that much, but I mean, recently I'm starting to care more about it. I was like, oh, it's my last year of high school. I would like to have a graduation or like a prom. It's like, oh, it's okay.
Hmm. Hopefully things get better by then, and even I don't think it'll be like a normal graduation, but hopefully you get some kind of ceremony or I don't know what.
Closure.
Yeah, something.
Yeah.
Hopefully.
I really don't want to get on stage with my mask on.
Yeah.
That's something that I'm looking forward to. But
Okay.
yeah,
Mhm.
Yeah.
it's been strange. But this was a
Mhm.
great podcast, guys. Thank you so much. This was really fun. This was the We Got You podcast. If you want to see more of this, follow us on Instagram. You can come back for our old podcast or the podcast to come. So thank you guys so much, and bye. We'll see you later.
Bye.
Bye. Thank
Bye
you.
bye.